Hey, what's up, everybody? Robert Marzullo here, and I'm responding to a video response, I guess. Responding to a response is somebody had asked about how I go about doing my inking, and to be a little bit more specific, I show a couple videos on my channel of how I do some inking, but some of it's time lapsed, so I'm gonna, kind of explain more of this and not do a speed video. So this is more of an instructional tutorial, and I'll kind of explain what my thought process is here. Now you'll notice I convert my initial pencil, which these are digital pencils. Um, I converted those to a blue line. It helps dull the image down, still allow me to see the detail that I need to see, but then also go in there and add my blacks and deeper tones and shadowing, and not get confused by the line work. So I'll go in here and I'll kind of explain. Um, this, by the way, is Blackstone Eternal. It's my character, my production, and you can find it on Indie Planet if you want to order a copy. And I'll keep you posted as to the other areas that'll be available. Right now, book one is done, and this is part of book two. Okay, so um, what it is here is, like when I come inside here, what I'm looking to do is add some uh, darker lines. Okay, I've got a thick to thin brush, digital brush, and I just start kind of feathering out the lines. And you'll notice I grab some of what I see there in the blue, but I don't just trace it. I kind of try to add a little bit as I go. Like right there, I added a few more lines in succession to one another. And then say right here, because I want some variance of line density, I may throw in some crosshatch lines like this. And I guess the way that I'm looking at this is, okay, I've got my base structure down of the line work, but I also want to add a little bit more texture and depth, and just generally more interesting line work to look at than what I see here. I guess I think of it like this also, is that each additional layer that you do when you draw, pencil, ink, digital, or otherwise, each time you should add a little bit more. So if you need to do your best project, your best product, you might just do more layers and more overlays, and each time refining it and finessing it a little bit more to get something that you're happy with. So a lot of people think that they're just going to put down their best on their first try, and that's not really the way this stuff works, in my opinion, or the way that my workflow works. So essentially, the line work that's there, that's blue, is just for reference. If an inker was to come back through, a different artist altogether, to work on this, they would they would interpret this the way that they would see it, and there would be their own interpretation. Like here, I'm going to bring this line up to about here, and then a few crosshatch lines like that, and that makes that a little bit more interesting to look at. And what the crosshatching is good for, conveying shadow, of course, and then I might do a few little lines like this to show that the object's rounding away from the view. But anyways, what these lines are for, it's good for conveying shadowing, but also for conveying texture, and line, various line density and shape. It just helps you add form to what you're doing. Um, you see, like right there, I'm just kind of texturing right there. I'm not really even drawing lines now. I'm kind of drawing almost like little circles or bumps or whatever, because I know that's going to fade back behind his head, and it's going to be dark back here. And since it is recessing back behind his head right here, and we're filling in some shadow, that's where I can bring some like real thin lines like this. And now it kind of show that rounds down and away and behind his head. And it's really just that same kind of thinking that I do as I go through this entire picture. Um, and I guess, like for instance, this tentacle that's coming around, the alien that's mounted to Blackstone right there. I could very easily just go through this entire thing and go, I'll show you like this. Just thick to thin lines all the way down, boom. And I mean, it's not a bad look, but it's not as interesting to me as what's up here. So that's where you make that judgment call and just, get rid of some of this, come back, and the way that I would rather see that look is more line variation, meaning maybe a thick line here, maybe a little thin one next to it, another thin one, another thin one, and maybe another thick one, where you're basically showing that, okay, there's shadow here, a little more light hitting here, some shadow here. So there's kind of different thicknesses of shapes in this tentacle shape creature or whatever. So that's all you're doing. That's what the line variation's all about. Trying to create that little bit of depth there. And again, where it might be more in shadow, a little bit more texture. And another good thing to do, another technique, is to back away. You got to remember that this stuff is all getting shrunk down dramatically. I can't remember the exact difference in scale, but when you draw on 11 by 17, it reduces all the way down to, God, I can't remember a comic book page, but it's like 8 by 5 or something. It's dramatically smaller. So you got to remember a lot of this little detail work gets reduced and lost. So you got to learn to look at it from back here and go, okay, yeah, I like what's going on in there, or no, there's, that could all just be filled in black. You're going to lose it anyways. But my problem, one of the hardest things with digital inking for me, is that I'll oftentimes zoom in too far because I want to do this, like, what I think looks cool, and get in there and do some effects, and then all the while, every now and then I'll print it out and I'll realize, man, I just wasted a half hour in that spot and it is totally lost. So keep in mind that's what the reduction aspect will do to you sometimes. So it's a good idea if you are doing it digital. Like I said, just print it out every now and then to see where you're really at. If you can afford the costly ink prices, so they're ridiculous. But the most expensive liquid on the planet, and guess what? It's ink for your printer, not the gasoline you put in your car. So okay, so now what I'm going to do is bounce around because this video will be way too long if I try to complete this whole page or something. But I want to kind of explain what my thought process is when I'm doing certain areas of this. So I showed how I texture the alien there. Let's see, maybe do some let's do this part, a little bit of this. So now this is obviously the outline of Blackstone's face as he's kind of screaming out in pain. So what you want to keep in mind here when you're inking, again, the thick to thin lines. Good rule of thumb is always make the area on the bottom or the shadow side the thickest, then thin back down, a little lighter on the highlight side, and then thicker again. That's one way to do it. I mean, if you look, you'll see guys that draw comics kind of just keep going thick, thin, all the way around the design, like even like right there. And there's a few different ways to do that. A lot of guys will go, well, you gotta do a brush here, you gotta do a technical pen here, you gotta do a crow quill here. I don't really particularly believe that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think a crow quill work done by a really good inker is just phenomenally cool to look at, but I don't think it's the only way. Like, essentially, this pen that I'm using digitally is just a pen. Oh, watch out! Hold on. Is essentially just a thick to thin pen, but just by applying more pressure, I'm getting a thicker line, and then by going over a certain area more or less, I'm getting my thick to thin lines. So, and then right here, to make this really look like it's breaking the border, I'll do a really thick line, and that'll help convey a little bit of depth there. And again, back away to see how that looks. I like the thick to thin difference in line over to here. That can be even a little thicker here, but that's about right. But yeah, just don't buy too much into the idea that it's the tools. It's definitely the artist, not just the tools. So you can overcome, and perfect example, when I first started doing this digitally, I won't even show you the first few pieces I did. They were absolutely horrid. It's because I was getting used to a tablet that I had to sit on my lap and then look up at the screen, and it was throwing me for a loop for a little while. And I think I honestly almost wanted to give up for a minute, and then I thought, you know what, I know I can do this. I can beat this, and I really wanted to do. Uh, at first, I just wanted to at least be able to digitally ink my comics because um, I'm not really that proficient of an inker. I'd rather just pencil the stuff, but since I'm a little bit more small time at this point, I had to kind of do it that way. So I forced myself to overcome it, and now I feel like I'm getting more decent results. I'm not the level I want to be at yet, but you know that's part of the artwork is growing and finding your flaws and getting better and better. So at any rate, there's the thicker lines that I would do first. Then I would systematically go through, trace out these. These are all highlights in the character's face. I just kind of trace those out, get some of these shapes going. Maybe change them a little bit as I'm inking around them, but keep them pretty true to the artwork. Unless I see something that just sticks out, like that line right there had a little bump in it. I didn't want to keep that, so I just went through it. So that's all I'm trying to show you is that you don't have to swear by the lines that you're going over. That's where a lot of guys go, well, inking's tracing, and it's really not. It's not tracing at all. You're actually, you know, um, giving it your own little spin when you do it, your own little art interpretation, and you'll definitely see the difference from a good inker to a bad one. Um, Especially if you're fortunate enough to see an artist that you like and see him with maybe different inkers, you're going to notice a huge difference in the work. Um, so I'm just kind of going around finding these lines where what I want to keep, what I want to do away with. Every now and then, with the digital way of doing it, I'll kind of draw a line like this, block off that area, make sure I got all my shapes outlined, and then just paint bucket in there. Grab if I can find that tool right there, and that saves me a little bit of time. And sometimes if you get these little lines in there, most softwares, if you just click it again, they'll disappear a little bit more. But you also have to watch your line clarity, that you didn't lose anything that you wanted to keep there. Now, being that this character is has these gloss lines, that's what these lines signify. So kind of draw into here, a little thicker, do a little round over, thin it back out, a little thicker, and then break it back off into that shape. And that's kind of like a quick and easy way to do chrome effects. Just a few little broke up black lines, and let's see if I can add one more in there. Pan back, see if that works. I don't like that last one. That's the beauty of digital. You just get rid of that sucker. And let me see if I want some lines in here, maybe. No, I don't think. I don't know if I like those either. And one really cool thing about digital is this right here. Let me grab some white or white ink, and just like that, you can throw in some white highlights or line work, and that's really cool. I love being able to do it just that fast and throw some little details in there. It's not insanely much harder when you do it in traditional methods, but it is more difficult than it is in with digital. And I just like it entirely more because the ability to go back and re-edit, since I'm not that confident of an inker, it makes it a heck of a lot easier to do digitally. Okay, get up here. And I'm just kind of tracing around each thing. Now, I can usually do a pretty even line, but you'll see I'm kind of sketching the line sometimes, and then every now and then I'll do one straight nice little pull. So I kind of mix it up. I don't know why I do that, other than I just think that, I'm trying to coordinate my hand a few different ways. Maybe it feels a little bit more comfortable to me, but and I think what I'll show next is some cross hatching, because unfortunately this area doesn't have a bunch. I got a little bit right here, so maybe I'll show that. So I'll close off all my lines that I'm getting ready to work within and around. Now, because this cross hatching is coming back to the line of the mouth here, and you're going to actually see this line. Some of these you're not, because it fills in all black, but here I can go ahead and thicken this line since you're going to see it. I'll give that a nice thick border of black right there, and then here's the opening of the mouth. Now, that would probably be black in there, and if this was color, it'd probably be a red or something, or a deep maroon. But what I'm going to go ahead and do, and I guess what I'm trying to say is the reason I really did it that way is because obviously that is darker than here, and this is blacked out where these X's are, so how come this isn't? Well, I did that because I'm trying to convey depth, and with the character that's all shiny black like this, it can be tough at times. So you got to remember to do light, dark, and kind of stagger it in comics. Even though sometimes it's going to be color work, which this isn't. But you gotta have that contrast, or it's not going to be interesting, and it's not going to convey as much depth. So that's the reasoning behind this. All this where the X's are gets blacked in. I leave a little bit of line work where I can do some cross hatching, and then some highlight information to pop the shapes forward and overlaid in front of the next. So like for instance, the way the lip is going to work out really well here is because I can put this nice thick line work underneath the lip like this. The teeth are white, so you're going to see that, and then a black shape underneath the teeth to pop them back out. And so when this is done, it'll be black, white, black, and just boom, 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 stagger it along, and you're going to have a little bit more depth. So now here, I'm going to go ahead and feather these lines back. I'm going to try to keep them all nice and straight. Now I'm doing this all in the same layer at this particular part, but keep in mind that if you struggle doing your lines, I've done a lot of line drawing over the years, so I'm pretty confident with doing cross hatching and line work, but as I pretty much made that one crooked. But if you don't feel as confident, a quick workaround of that is draw your lines on a separate layer. Now you got a little bit more freedom, and you can erase if like for instance, you notice where I'm starting, the lines are going over that initial line right up here, but that's okay because that's going to be blacked in anyways. But now if I was going past this line, then I'd have to worry about erasing them or cleaning them up, but it's still not a big deal because I'm working digitally. That's an easy fix. And if you notice on some of these lines, I'm trying to start out thicker and then work them down to a thinner line at the other end, just to again convey some depth, but also just give it a little bit of line, more of an interesting line work than if they were just like this, straight even lines all the way down. So those weren't really even, but you get the point. Like, that's why I'm feathering these lines here and there, just to give it a little bit of more character. And then as it goes down there, I'll try to darken a bit. Now I can come back here and maybe feather the beginning part of the lines here a little bit more. Oops. And all I'm looking at when I do this is the the white, the negative white spaces in between them. I want to keep them there, but make them almost non-existent. This one's too big right there. And that way, when you pan back, I shouldn't really be taking this long, but, and again, something that you probably just won't see, but I'm doing that for practice too. So that when you pan back, see how it almost makes another shadow right there? So it goes from dark, another shadow, and lighter. That's actually why a lot of people choose to use a crow quill, because it kind of does that naturally, so you wouldn't have to spend the time that I just did right there. But for the amount of times that I use that technique, I still don't mind doing it this way. Alright, so teeth there. Now again, the line where it doesn't matter as much right there as far as thickness, because this is all getting blocked in. So, and then here it will matter because the other teeth or other tooth will show that line. So I can keep in mind of, you know, what that line looks like. Okay, let's block that in. Okay, and right here, same thing, thick to thin lines. Now one thing I try to do is, since I know these lines are going to be right next to these here, I'm going to make these dramatically thicker. If not, it's going to kind of blend and it's not going to look very interesting. But if I make them dramatically thicker, then they stand apart from those lines from distance, if you can see that. So that's the other thing. As much as you possibly can, try to you know, get good at making a few different types of lines. I'll show you ones, and hopefully you can see them right here the way I'm doing this. Like here's another one I'll do quite a bit. I'll do a series of thick to thin lines, and then I'll pull another one to the side like that. And that's really just for texturing, just to make it look different so they don't all blend together. Let me see if I can find any other parts of this where I can show you another type of line. Let's see here. I guess down here where this cross hatching is. Now one of the reasons why I switched to digital was so that I could do stuff like this and not feel that if I was going to experiment that I might ruin the page, because I do that a lot. I experiment a lot when I'm drawing or inking, and God, I had so much, you know, eraser marks on my pages, my Bristol board, and you know, so many failed attempts at inking it, and I just thought, you know what, maybe digital is for me just in that regard. So I'll go through here. I'll thick to thin these lines a little bit. You see I'm slowly staggering them away from the next line, gets further and further apart. Okay, and now I'll rotate this. Okay, now I'm going to do thick to thin again, but now in this direction. I don't think I'm going to space these out very far. I'll keep that kind of consistent. Just like that. Alright, let's rotate that back and then zoom back and see how that looks. Yeah, that's all I was going for. I'm just trying to make a little shadow down there at the scene. So here I've got a crosshatch shadow, and then here, this is Bot, by the way, Blackstone's trusty little sidekick, who's was always giving him grief and trying to use like human antidotes and trying to be smart when, or trying to be funny when he shouldn't be. He's just a robot. But somewhere in his programming, that's what he does. Okay, so right through here, I'll block out this area, just like that. Grab the trusty old paint bucket, drop that in. Okay, now this is another shading style, just basically the same thing, thick to thin lines, but spaced apart just a little bit further, and then coming to a point a little more abrupt. And I can't really say why I do that on shading like this, other than my only thinking in this process is that I just want more of a quick transition from dark to light. Maybe because I'm picturing it on metal there, so it makes more sense to me. And then also the fact that it would just give, again, another level of variance from the other type of line work, so that when this entire page is done, you have a good amount of texturing and line variance, so it doesn't all just blend together. The last thing you want is for your eye to just flow through this entire page and not, not have a little bit of difference from what it's looking at. There's got to be some texturing, like these little rocks down here. I'm just basically going to kind of scribble, but then when I get back to the side with the shadow, I'm going to block in some shadow there, and then mix that in with a few little lines. Little block shadow, scribble, lines, and that's all I'm doing. I mean, it's nothing too spectacular, but it conveys that, hey, the ground's a little bit bumpy right there. Maybe some little dots for texturing. Maybe a little blade of grass here. No, you see that? I just freestyled that. That wasn't there, and I put that there. It doesn't have to be exactly what you're looking at. And especially for stuff like this, I oftentimes will kind of freestyle it a little bit if I'm looking, to make it look more organic, or if I pan back and there's just too much blank space in there, too much white, then I'll come in and fill in a little texture and see how that looks. More lines right here. In these lines, I'm just going real light and just slowly scratching them across the surface. And then I'll pan back, make sure that's working. Here's another style of shading where it's thick to thin lines, little line break across, which this basically signifies, maybe there's a little bit of dirt right there, and then the shadow picks back up again. That's a real popular one that works really good on, I use that a lot on like cityscapes, buildings, stuff like that. Let me see if there's anything else I can pick apart in here. I got some basic cross hatching back there, nothing too spectacular, but I don't know that I'll keep that. I don't know if I'm going to like that one or not, but I'll try it. What this is supposed to be is kind of a silhouette of the mountain in the background. Obviously a couple of the weird looking alien palm trees that are going on here. So you fill these all in as a solid. But then instead of making this all solid, I didn't want it where you couldn't see the levels of depth, so I made it solid, some cross hatching, next solid, next little bit of mountain, cross hatching, so on and so forth. Then a tree in front here to break that up. But I don't know that I don't know what I'm going to do back here, so I'll probably kind of fill this area out and see if I want to keep it. I might do more of the shadowing like this. I'll just show you real quick. And see, now I'm feathering the lines a little bit less, just quick strokes, and I'm doing various line lengths, obviously. A few short, a few long, just like that. And then come across this way. Make sure that some of them go below it, some exceed past it. All the way across. And finally, one more the other direction. And fill it in, see what we got. And one thing I gotta say I do like about inking is it's kind of just like peaceful almost. You just kind of just go through it and have fun with it, and I kind of zone out and just have a good time with it. I don't get I don't think I ever get like ticked off when I'm inking. Which is weird because I fancy myself more as a pencil and pencil artist, but for some reason I'm a little bit more at peace with inking. I can get pretty frustrated when drawing sometimes, but it's still more my passion. So it's kind of strange because you think that would be the opposite, but it's not. Not for me, anyways. So, but I would rather just draw. And if I had a opportunity where I had a really good inker, I would probably take it as long as we worked well together and it was quick and I was getting the kind of quality of work out that I wanted to. But I've never been able to do that, so I've just always inked my own work, and I don't mind it. So, the only thing that bothers me is the time-related issue. When you're trying to complete a whole comic book, penciling, inking, and creating the story, it's quite time-consuming. So you see, I just kind of fill in those little lines there with the trees. I got the cross-hatching there. I'll pan back and make sure that works. And yeah, that's about what I was looking for. I just wanted a transition of light and dark there, then the next solid hill there, and so on and so forth through those areas. So yeah, so that's essentially what I wanted to show you. Like I said, I just had somebody that said in the comments, hey Rob, I wanted a little bit more information on inking, and that's the best I can really explain. That you're going to have to practice some different cross hatching and line work. Also make sure that you do your thick to thin lines, because that helps kind of stage your objects in your scene. Thicker lines to the areas that are closer, or areas that are in shadow of the when they're a trace line around the character, like I'm doing there. The lower line, the shadow line, would be thicker, but then if I'm trying to pop this object out, then this line needs to be thicker than, say, the alien right here is going to be a little bit further away. So I guess to explain that, like from here where it's the furthest part, it should be thinner, and then as it comes back, a little bit thicker in spots, then thinner again, and really thick by the time it gets closer to Blackstone there. But then also, this entire line around his face needs to be a lot thicker than what's on the alien there. So, and that's how you're going to create or stage your depth, and same thing. So the line over here is going to be a lot thinner, whatever. And that, essentially that's what you're aiming for with that kind of effect. So hopefully this was helpful. Be sure to let me know what you thought. Thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever. Don't hate, congratulate, and be sure to check out Blackstone Eternal. You can find it on Indie Planet. Again, I do appreciate the support, but let me know what you think of the character, and you can also find more of my work at ramstudios1.deviantart, and be sure to subscribe so I can keep bringing you videos like this one. So thanks very much for watching. Good luck with all your drawing. Take care. Bye bye.